At Tesco, we have amazing offers for you this Christmas, like our Board B approved Tesco Finest Irish Whole and Half Leg of Lamb, now half price. Or treat yourself with Cadbury Freddo Caramel 6-pack, Milky Bar Pouch Bag 103 gram, or a selection of O'Donnell's Crisps 125 gram, and more, any 5 for €5. And check out our brilliant wine offers, Casillero del Diablo Cabernet Sauvignon, Campo Viejo Tempranillo, or Torres Venus Sol 6 bottles for €40. Tesco. Every little helps. Enjoy alcohol responsibly.
Onto your headphones and pour your favorite beverage. It's time for the Kickin' or Stickin' Fantasy Football Podcast. Now, fresh off the sidelines, your host, Matt McPeak.
Fantasy freaks and geeks, what is up? Welcome to the Thanksgiving Day special episode of the Kickin' or Stickin' Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I got to apologize for the audio quality of this episode. I'm on the road today, so I'm recording with some minimal equipment here, so please forgive me. But yeah, we got 3 Thanksgiving Day games going on here. I got some prop bets that I'm going to be looking at. Not all of the numbers are out as of right now because the Ravens-Steelers game still has some COVID question marks surrounding it, but I do have a couple props that I'm looking at. So yeah, let's get into these games here. The first one is going to be the Texans minus 2.5 at the Lions. The over/under's set at 51.5 right now. This is the battle of the ex-Patriot defensive coordinators there, Romeo Crennel and Matt. Can't even think of his, Matt Patricia there. Probably the biggest injury concern we got in this game is Kenny Golladay. Hasn't played in 2 or 3 games now. Missed practice on Tuesday. I have him in my in one of my dynasty leagues, and he's been killing me because I traded for him earlier in this year, thinking that I was going to be getting myself a number 1 wide receiver, and it hasn't really worked out that way. But hopefully, he's good to go for this game. Duke Johnson hasn't done much over these past few weeks since gaining the starting running back role for the Texans. Ever since David Johnson went down with that concussion. But I don't know how you can sit him in this game. The Lions are absolutely atrocious against the run. They're in the top 2 or 3 as far as rushing yards allowed this season. So if you got Duke Johnson, give them another week here on Thursday night, or Thursday afternoon, really. Will Fuller's a must-start. I think Brandon Cooks has become a must-start in this offense. The Texans' tight ends, Jordan Atkins and Darren Fells, are both so incredibly inconsistent in Week 9. In a top 3 matchup for tight ends. Neither of them did anything. Then last week against one of the top 3 hardest matchups against tight ends with the Patriots, Jordan Atkins had 5 freaking catches for 83 yards. So it's a complete coin toss with these guys. The Lions have allowed 5 touchdowns to tight ends this year, but among the 5 teams that have allowed 5 touchdowns to tight ends, the Lions have allowed the fewest receptions and receiving yards. So and plus the tight ends are both behind Duke and David Johnson. They're behind all 3 wide receivers in Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and Randall Cobb in red zone targets. So, yeah, the Texans just don't really target their tight ends in the red zone, which is kind of weird. That's usually where you see the majority of tight end targets do come up, is in the red zone. But so I'm not messing around with any of these guys. I think I'm just going to stick with Fuller, Cooks. I'm starting Duke Johnson. And obviously we're starting Deshaun Watson, which we'll get into in a minute. For the Lions, if DeAndre Swift is active, he missed Monday's practice, and he had a limited practice on Tuesday. And I hope that he is active. You got to play him in this matchup. Like I said, the Texans are also atrocious against the run. Last week, without DeAndre Swift, the Lions mustered 35 rushing yards on 13 carries between Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson. So they need this kid. And it was a really good matchup for those Lions running backs against the Panthers last week. But again, they just didn't do anything. So they need the rookie back. So hopefully he suits up. If he is cleared from concussion protocol, I will be very interested in looking at what his rushing yard prop ends up coming out as. Hopefully we get it at a discount because of his whole concussion issue. TJ Hawkinson is a must start, especially if there's no Kenny Galladay. The Texans have a below average pass defense. So again, if Kenny Galladay is out, Marvin Jones is a start. He only had 51 yards on 4 catches last week, but he scored 4 touchdowns in the 3 games before last week. So I'm going to run him out there again, especially if Kenny Galladay is out. There's just a lot of question marks in this game because of the injuries with Galladay and Swift. But like I said, if DeAndre Swift is cleared from concussion protocol, I'm going to be very interested in his rushing prop. And Deshaun Watson has 25 rushes over the last 3 games, averaging 35 rushing yards a game over his last 5 games. His rushing yard prop right now is 31.5 yards, so I really like that one. I think I'm going to take the over on that. I also like his passing yard prop, 293.5. He's gone over that number 5 times this year. The Lions' run defense is so incredibly bad that really teams don't even bother throwing the ball on them. And they have some corners that are not the greatest. And I think this is a great matchup for the Texans. You know, they don't really run the ball that much. They have one of the highest passing rates in the NFL. So I think this is a great spot for the Texans to go out there and really put some points up on the board on Thanksgiving Day. Kind of show everybody that the Texans are nowhere near as bad as they were for the years that they've been under Bill O'Brien. So I'm also going to be using this pick as one of my podcast picks for Week 12 here. So give me the Texans minus 2.5. I think I saw it at 3 on FanDuel, but I think it's still at 2.5 on DraftKings. If it is at 3, I would buy it down to 2.5. Again, you know, put the hook on your side. Only need to win by a field goal if you get it at 2.5. Whereas if at 3, a field goal win gives you a push, and ain't nobody wants a push on Thanksgiving. So that's going to do it for that game. Let's move on to the Washington football team getting 3 points at the Cowboys, 46.5 as the over-under. Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson are the must-starts for the Washington football team. I'm going to sit J.D. McKissic. He has a 4 yards per carry average, and the Cowboys have allowed, 4 yards per catch. And the Cowboys have allowed the fewest receiving yards to running backs this year. So, I'm sorry, I screwed that up. He has a 4 yards per carry average, and the Cowboys are getting better as far as their rushing yard defense. But like I said, the passing defense against running backs is really good for the Cowboys. So I think I'm going to sit J.D. McKissic because that's such a big part of his game there. So, yeah, sitting J.D. The Cowboys offense looked pretty good last week. Ezekiel Elliott had his first 100-yard game all year on 21 carries. Also had a touchdown receiving. Washington's run D is nothing to worry about, so Zeke is definitely still a RB1 at home on Thanksgiving. I think we're gonna get the best of the Cowboys this week, coming off of a big win against the Vikings that they put up 31 points, I think. We're still playing Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. I think we can safely say that Michael Gallup is clearly the number 3 guy as far as wide receivers go. I don't have any Cowboys wide receivers in any of my 9 fantasy leagues this year, but I would sit Michael Gallup if I did have him. He was 4th on the team in targets last week. Dalton Schultz was 3rd on the team in targets. He caught the game-winning touchdown last week. He's got a really good matchup. Washington has allowed 6 touchdowns to tight ends this year so far. So the props that I like for this game, J.D. McKissic under 28.5 receiving yards. The Cowboys, like I said, allow the fewest receiving yards to running backs. They got 2 of the fastest linebackers that can cover the most ground in the NFL, really. So, yeah, give me J.D.'s under receiving yards. Terry McLaurin over receiving yards. He's been one of the most consistent wide receivers this year, and I think they're going to need him to have a good game in order to stay in this one. And maybe Dalton Schultz anytime touchdown. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I think I'm leaning towards Dalton Schultz as the touchdown prop guy. And last but not least, we got the Baltimore Ravens getting 4.5 points right now at the Steelers. I was extremely surprised to see the rookie, J.K. Dobbins led the team in carries by so much last week. He had 15 for 70 yards and a touchdown, while Gus Edwards and Mark Ingram had 5 carries between the two of them for 8 yards combined. Dobbins also caught the only 2 RB targets last week. I don't know what to make of it. He's had the most upside of the 3 running backs in the past few weeks now because he's the most explosive, but this week it doesn't matter because J.K. Dobbins is out on Thursday night because of COVID. It looks like it's just going to be Gus Edwards and Justice Hill for the Ravens. I think Gus Edwards is a solid RB2 in non-PPR leagues, maybe more of a flex in PPR leagues. The Steelers actually haven't been great over the last few weeks as far as defending the run. They let James Robinson run for over 4 yards per carry last week in a game that the Steelers almost led the entire game. I think I'm avoiding Justice Hill because I have no idea how many touches he's going to get. Gus should get the majority of the work, but I don't see him having all that many catches. So that's why I think he's more of a flex, maybe even a sit in PPR leagues. But he's a Ravens running back that should get 15 touches, so that alone should make him a start in non-PPR leagues. And then obviously, like I said, it's a question mark in PPR. Seems like Mark Andrews is back, led the team in targets, catches, and yards last week with 96, and he scored. The Steelers have only allowed 1 touchdown to tight ends this year, but I'm still starting Mark Andrews. I have him in 2 leagues. But I will be looking at Mark Andrews' reception prop, and I'm interested in taking the under. So the Steelers are the only team to allow under 50% catch rate against tight ends, and that's with them being tied for the 9th most targets against by tight ends. So it's not like they're not seeing any tight ends. They've played a whole bunch of really good tight ends, actually. Andrews had only 3 catches in Week 8 against the Steelers. I'm hoping with Andrews' 12 receptions over the last 2 weeks, that will drive his over-under up to hopefully 5.5, 6.5. And like I said, I'm looking to take that under as long as it doesn't go lower than 4.5. On one side of the coin, you got Andrews' target share started to go up over the past couple weeks. He's probably the only reliable receiver that they have on the team. So he's probably going to lead the team in targets again. But like I said, the Steelers are just so tough, and they're great at defending tight ends. So I'm comfortable going under as long as it's 4.5. If it's 5.5, hell yeah, I'm going to go under. If it's 3.5, I'm going to go over on that. I think 4 catches is the good sweet spot for Mark Andrews. And then last but not least, Dez Bryant was second on the team in targets last week and had the most receiving yards among the Ravens wide receivers last week. But I'm not starting any of these Raven wide receivers against the Steelers. They are just too good. So that's going to do it for the Thanksgiving Day episode. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check us out again tomorrow. I'm going to be doing another episode either later today or early tomorrow morning with all the other games for Week 12. So have a good holiday, stay safe, and enjoy the football games. And as always, may the fantasy gods be cruel to your opponents.
You have been listening to the Kickin' or Stickin' Fantasy Football Podcast. For more great episodes and information, follow us on social media and tune in every week. Kickin' or Stickin' is available on Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Alexa, Reach.tv, or your favorite podcast service. Kickin' or Stickin' is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. To find out more about this and other great shows on our network, visit us online at hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Fantasy football is fun, but gambling addiction destroys lives. If you or someone you love suffers from gambling addiction, please do not be afraid to seek help. The National Council on Problem Gambling operates the National Problem Gambling Helpline Network. Contact them today at 1-800-522-4700. Thank you for tuning in to the Kickin' or Stickin' Fantasy Football Podcast. Please remember to play responsibly and always look for your man downfield.
Rewarding your staff this Christmas? With One for All gift cards, you can gift anything from €15 to €500 completely tax-free. And you're supporting retail in Ireland. Accepted in over 11,000 outlets nationwide, like Tesco, Argos, Woodies, Boots, Currys, and online. Order at oneforallrewards.ie or place a corporate order at your local post office, and you could win a daily prize worth over €100. Terms and conditions apply. The One for All gift card is issued by GVS Prepaid Europe Limited. GVS Prepaid Europe Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Rewarding your staff this Christmas? With One for All gift cards, you can gift anything from €15 to €500 completely tax-free. And you're supporting retail in Ireland. Accepted in over 11,000 outlets nationwide, like Tesco, Argos, Woodies, Boots, Currys, and online. Order at oneforallrewards.ie or place a corporate order at your local post office, and you could win a daily prize worth over €100. Terms and conditions apply. The One for All gift card is issued by GVS Prepaid Europe Limited. GVS Prepaid Europe Limited is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.